Attorney General informs court that Arjun Mahendran has changed his name to Arjan Alexander. Preschools to reopen from the 1st of July. Reverend Father Ernest Porutota passes away. Chennai closes down for 12 days amidst the coronavirus pandemic. Hello there and welcome to Lunchtime News here on TV1. You joining me, Debbie Paldan. Now taking a look at some of your local stories, Secretary to the Ministry of Defence, retired Major General Kamal Gunaratne, replied to the comments made against implementing government officers through the Presidential Task Force. He expressed these views at a press briefing which was held at the Ministry of Defence today.
Sri Lanka stood tall amidst the coronavirus pandemic when many powerful countries were on their knees. The first local COVID-19 patient was identified on the 8th of March. However, the President appointed the committee to look into this 40 days before he was identified. After the 30th of April, we have not identified any coronavirus patients in the society. All the identified patients were from the Sri Lanka Navy or from among the groups that were repatriated from overseas. His Excellency the President appointed 2 presidential task forces. We got to know that many views regarding these decisions were expressed. The President appointed the first task force to protect, renovate and reconstruct archaeological sites in the eastern province. There is no greater shame that we can bring upon our ancestors if we let these valuable locations get destroyed or let people use it to dry their wet clothes. We will not limit the protection that we give to a single religion or a race. The other presidential task force is appointed to look into and prevent all underworld activities, organized crime and narcotics trade, done mostly from within prison. Here there are a few statements about government officers. I saw that those statements have been misinterpreted in many places, especially on social media. It was said that Major General Kamal Gunaratne has been given the authority over government officers. It does not mean that. I want to reassure that apart from the government officers working under me in the Defence Ministry, I have no authority nor interest to control other government officials.
හැරෙන්න මට වෙන කිසිම කෙනෙක්ව පාලනය කිරීමට අවශ්‍යතාවයකුත් නැහැ. එහෙම බලයක් මට දීලා.
Now shifting our attention to some headline-making stories, fugitive ex-Central Bank Governor Lakshman Arjuna Mahendran, the first suspect in the bond scam case, had changed his name to Arjan Alexander.
Additional Solicitor General Palinda Ranasinghe, appearing for the Attorney General's Department, informed the Permanent High Court Trial at Bar that Interpol had communicated this development to them as a response to the Sri Lankan government's request from the government of Singapore to extradite the suspect to the country to be produced in court. Permanent High Court Trial at Bar Justices Sampath Abekon, Sampath Wijeratne and Champa Janaki Rajaratne ordered to issue summons once again for Ajahan Gadia Punchiheva, the 10th suspect in the case, to appear in court. Ajahan Gadia Punchiheva served as Director of Perpetual Treasuries Limited and is believed to be living in Singapore. The Additional Solicitor General informed court the order on the writ application filed by Ajahan Gadia Punchiheva with the Court of Appeal against naming him as a suspect in the case will be delivered on the 18th of June, and thereby the Permanent High Court Trial at Bar ordered for the matter to be called up again on the 17th of November.
Now in more headline-making stories, a decision has been reached to reopen daycare centres from the 1st of July, strictly adhering to health guidelines issued by the
Secretary to the Ministry of Women. Secretary to the Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs, Neil Bandarahapuhina, said accordingly measures have been taken to distribute the relevant guidelines to all daycare centres expeditiously. There are 1,500 registered daycare centres across the island.
A rehearsal was held at Royal College Colombo in relation to the decision taken by the government to reopen schools in 4 stages.
Our sister channel Sirasa TV was the official media sponsor for this event. Many dignitaries including Senior DIG Deshabandhu Tennakon, National Director of Schools Kitsiri Liyanage attended the event. Many classrooms were cleaned and sterilised at the event. The government recently decided to end the public school holiday on the 29th of June. As the first step of this decision, all principals, teachers and all non-academic staff must report to work on the 29th of June. Accordingly, schools will reopen on the 6th of July to grades of 13, 11 and 5 and on the 20th of July to the grades of 12 and 10. And for the fourth stage, on the 27th of July, school will be open for the remaining grades of 3, 4, 6, 7, 8 and 9. However, the dates on which the schools will be reopened for the first and second grades have not still been announced.
Reverend Father Ernest Porutota, a Catholic priest who carried out a yeoman service for the Sri Lankan cinema industry, passed away this morning while receiving treatment at the private hospital in Colombo. The Reverend Father was 88 years of age at the time of his demise.
Father Ernest Porutota was born on the 31st of August 1931 and was ordained on the 2nd of February 1957. He did an outstanding amount of missionary work in Dehiyagata, Kalaniya, Kaluthara, Kalamulla, Kotte, Wattala, Dehiwala, Kadawatha and Kirimatiyagara. As the National Director of the Catholic Organization for Cinema and Audiovisual, Father Porutota's service to the film industry and the field of mass communication was enormous. The services of Reverend Father Ernest Porutota as a critic and as an author will forever remain in the hearts of many.
Here are a few views expressed in the political arena.
2020.
We have a requirement of the two-third majority. We need to increase our number of seats in Mathura from 5 to 6. The opposition has created the background for us to do just that. You will be a major stakeholder of this country that this government will create during the next 10 years.
This government does not have a proper plan. They do not have a proper vision and they do not care about the people. There were moderates who voted for this government. All of them are disappointed now. We need to know the truth. Just observe how difficult the people's lives are.
If a politician switches from the telephone to the elephant, or from the elephant to Pohottuwa, or Pohottuwa to elephant, all of them will be welcomed with open arms. This is the deal. Due to this, Sri Lanka does not have politics based on policies. In this country, politics is based on deals and profits.
2020.
Now on to international news. US President Donald Trump announced he will sign an executive order today on police reforms amid increased pressure after the death of George Floyd. The package would in fact create a database to track police officers with multiple instances of misconduct.
Officials said the order would also use federal grants to incentivize departments to meet certain certification standards on use of force. The measure is intended to, quote, have the discussion the country needs to have so we can turn the anger in the country into action and hope, unquote. Trump is also expected to call on Congress to pass additional legislation. The executive order doesn't address broader concerns raised by police reform advocates in policing. Protesters took to the streets of Washington and New York calling for equality in the wake of African-American George Floyd's death while in police custody in Minneapolis. US cities have seen daily protests demanding justice since the May 25th killing of Floyd. His death has triggered national soul-searching over prejudice in American society and prompted calls for new ways of policing. US President Trump called on Washington Governor Jay Inslee to bring in the National Guard to quell protesters in Seattle. Otherwise, Trump would do it for him.
They took over a city, Seattle, and he said, I didn't hear anything about it. So look, the governor has to call out the troops, do what he has to do, has to call out the National Guard, has to do something. Because, you know, the problem with what happened in Seattle is it spreads. And all of a sudden they'll say, let's do some other city, and let's do another one. And we're not going to let it happen. So timing-wise, hey, we're all set to go. We're watching the process.
Hundreds of demonstrators have established a makeshift encampment behind barricades in the city's Capitol Hill district, sectioning off the area and calling it the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, following days of nationwide protests over police brutality and injustice.
Meanwhile, North Korea's army has warned that it is ready to enter the demilitarized zone dividing the two Koreas. The threat is partly in response to defector groups in the south sending propaganda material up north. Over the weekend, Kim Yo-jong, the sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, said she'd order the army to prepare for the step. The military now says it is ready to, quote, turn the front line into a fortress and heighten military vigilance, end quote. Tensions between the two countries have been rising for some time over the cross-border leaflets usually sent via balloons. South Korea's defense ministry responded to the renewed threat by saying it was working with the US to closely monitor military moves in the north. Now moving on to your international COVID update, the Indian government has again declared total lockdown in the state capital Chennai and certain areas under it from the 19th of June to the 30th of June, as it was unable to control the spiraling coronavirus figures. Meanwhile, New Zealand has confirmed 2 new cases of COVID-19, ending a 24-day streak of no new infections in the country.
Both women, who are from the same family, had travelled from the UK and were given special permission to attend the funeral of a parent. Last week, New Zealand lifted all domestic restrictions, declaring that the country was virus-free. However, strict border restrictions remained in place, with only citizens and essential workers allowed in. It's not known if the patients are citizens of UK, New Zealand or elsewhere.
Now back to some local news. Residents alleged that the Mahavilu Mukulana Forest Reserve in Moravaka, Matara has been cut down.
The Mahavila Mukulana Forest Reserve is about 500 acres. This reserve is a sub-reserve of the Singharaja Forest, located 20 kilometers from the Singharaja Forest. This reserve consists of valuable plants such as Actonia. Residents also point out that medicinal plants also could be found here. The Mukulana Reserve also houses some of the main water springs that supply water to several areas. Residents allege that valuable plants have also been cut down. As the residents of this area, this reserve is like our heart. They have completely destroyed this reserve.
On the 28th of last month, a group of people came and said that they had taken permission from the Timber Corporation and cut down some Actonia trees. After about 5 days, they came every day to cut trees. This has turned out to be a disaster.
The residents say that they have informed the Morocco Wildlife Office about the trees that are being cut down. A complaint has also been lodged at the Morocco Police. We inquired from the State Timber Corporation and the Forest Department about the timber racket in the Mukulana Forest Reserve in Mahavila. They stated that the manager of the Matara State Timber Corporation, W.L. Sagara, and divisional officers of the Department of Wildlife Conservation in the Matara district will look into this matter.
Now on to your local COVID update. The Health Ministry said that a patient who had recovered from COVID-19 has been infected with the virus once again. She is a 36-year-old woman who had arrived in the country from Kuwait.
Chief Epidemiologist Dr. Sudat Samaravira said that the PCR tests which were carried out at the Anuradhapura hospital yesterday had confirmed that the patient has been infected again. He stated that the woman, who is a resident of Kabitigol Lab, Anuradhapura, was directed to the National Institute of Infectious Diseases, or the IDH. He said tests are currently being carried out to ascertain whether the people she associated with have also contracted the virus. However, Dr. Sudat Samaravira said that external parties are not at risk to contract the virus.
The total number of COVID-19 cases in the island has increased to 1,905. 16 new cases were confirmed yesterday. Of these, 6 are those who returned to the island from Maldives, 5 from Kuwait, 1 from Bangladesh, 1 from Pakistan, and 1 is a Sri Lanka Navy sailor. Of the total number of cases reported, 552 patients continue to receive treatment in hospitals. 1,342 patients have recovered from COVID-19 in Sri Lanka.
Well, that is a wrap of Lunchtime News here on TV1. For more news, log on to our award-winning website www.newsfirst.lk. For the News First team, I'm David Paldana. Take care.